I think you ought to know. Black Men's Radio. The place where men and women really speak. Oh man, what a show. It's Men's Radio. This crazy show is on 3 times a week. Now Russ and Phil are there to help with all your cares. We laugh, we cry, we talk like grown-ups do. But if you're sad and low, it won't cost you no dough. Men's Radio, that's the place for you. With Russ Kane and Phil Dave.
That was quick. You snipped the end off. Say nothing.
Oh,
Say nothing. Oh, it just ended, didn't it? It just ended. Okay,
Hang on.
that was weird.
I don't understand. I heard the end perfectly.
No, I heard nothing. Nothing. Kimmy Lashmar on TV at the moment. Kimmy Lashmar in Ken Bruce's show. Yeah.
I heard about the Pop Masters.
Pop Masters. Very good. About time that was on TV. Fabulous blooming show that was. Let's
And
go to
the BBC didn't want to trademark it.
idiots. Like the BBC didn't trademark Mr. Blobby, and Noel Edmonds owned the rights to Mr. Blobby. He also, don't ask me how he pulled this off, owned the rights to Noel's house party. Because I know I was in it when it was a huge corporate gig for British Telecom. It's incredible. How does that happen? Do you think Emily
And to be
Maitland?
fair, I could understand not wanting to trademark Mr. Blobby.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Made a fortune out of Mr. Blobby. Anyway, let's kick off. Oh, loads of other things. Very good. Thank you, Graham Pack. As Phil slipped the end off.
I'm only in it for the tips.
Yay! And Barry Allen.
It's no skin off my nose.
Stop it. Afternoon all, says Barry Allen. Afternoon to you. And we hope you're feeling a little bit better. He's had a terrible time recently. Now, something on a serious note. Oh, wow. Azadon Brown has gone to New York. Probably having coffee with Elizabeth Green. Or is it New York State? Aza, is it New York City or New York State? Which is it, fella? Now, I mentioned this on Wednesday, and I want to bring it up again because I haven't had a chance to chat to you about it, Phil. And it's this. When the submarine was lost, looking down at the Titanic as though it was a Disney amusement site, social media was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And can you hang on one? And social media was absolutely terrible because what it was saying was, well, I mean, effectively, it was the politics of envy serves them right. And if they've got £250,000 to spend, they should be spending it on the poor, etc. And I said on Wednesday, it's...
Oh, no. It was even worse than that. It was, if they've got £250,000, they're obviously not being taxed enough. That was some of the lines. And you just think, just do one. Seriously.
Just shut up. That's just shut up about it. Hi, Julie voice. And Emma Webb says this. Good day, the sun is awesome. I'm flying. I'm flying on my meds. Be kept bloody Nora. Take it easy.
I mean, I would have thought British Airways was better, but no worries, go for it.
Well, look, flying on your meds is better than Ryanair.
Oh, unless she's flying to the meds, then maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't think so somehow. Anyway, the point was, it really infuriated me because it's all these idiots with about 12 followers on Twitter, etc. And I thought, how disgusting. And there's several things to unpack from this. First, now they're all dead, are you happy? Are you sitting there in your mum's spare bedroom in your underpants as you write this garbage?
Can I just highlight
they're dead?
Yeah, but RK, can I just point out, you say that it's people with 12 followers. It wasn't, though. There were one or two who were quite high profile. Probably the most high profile was Cat Stevens or Yusuf Islam.
The Religion of Peace. Remember his song, I'm going to get me a gun, I'm going to get me a gun, and everybody who puts me down had better get ready to run. Nothing says peace more than that.
But what he said was on his social media, which really, and I couldn't help but reply to it. I don't think he'll pay the slightest bit of attention to me, but I
don't think he's too worried over
I felt
Yusuf.
compelled to reply. But he said he put 2 photos, posted a photo of
refugees,
a boat stuffed with refugees.
Well,
and
we say refugees. What we mean is migrants.
Well, I was going to say economic migrants.
Economic migrants.
And he also put a photo of the submarine, and then said how one has ignited an international rescue mission. The others people just ignore and hope will go away. And you just think it literally the two aren't comparable, right?
Well,
literally not comparable.
For the stupid, for the hard of thinking, what you do is you conflate 2 utterly, totally separate issues, and you shove them all together. Why? Because it's the water. It's the water. Oh, of course, it's the water. Naturally, that makes it one issue. No, it doesn't. These people, would I, and I said it on Wednesday and I said it again, if I was, a rich person, if I were, no, I'm not. If I was, would I spend that money looking at the Titanic? Absolutely not. Wild horses wouldn't drag me there. 1, terrifyingly claustrophobic. 2, ghoulish. I don't want to see it. It's a mass grave of thousands of people. Let it rest in peace. Let it rest in peace. It's nothing but, they can spend their money how they want. How dare you? Have no idea these people, including Cat Stevens, who hasn't had a hit since I was a teenager, and that's some time ago.
Basically, since changing his name.
Since changing, no, way before that. You have no idea what they give to charity. You don't know. Maybe they give nothing. Maybe they give millions. They may have their own beneficial trust to charities. You don't know that. So this horrible politics of envy, although there's something noble in going in a boat and coming into a country illegally. Now, let me clarify that yet again. I don't want to be misquoted. If you are being threatened by horrendous forces, and you're going to be taken out into the street and shot in the head, literally, in front of your family, wife and children, get on a boat and come here. Of course you should. If you
or indeed, just where the first safe country is, but let's not go down that route.
Well, no, that's not convenient. That's an argument we never see. Where is the safe place where you're not going to get shot? Oh, okay. But if it's just people coming in, I don't know, Albania. Anyone know the civil war in Albania? No, there isn't one. There isn't one. You're going to get shot to death in Albania? Well, only if you're a drug dealer and you've crossed another gang member. No, you're not. So there is a huge difference between genuine refugees fleeing for their lives and people who just think, well, I'll just fancy a bit more money. And as I said, I was down on the coast at 2-3 weeks ago, couple of weeks, and the guy down there that I was meeting for business, he said to me, "How many people do you think came ashore on Sunday on this little stretch of the Kent coast?" I said, "I don't know. 900. 900. There you go.
Look, the bottom line is to get back to the more serious subject here, and that is, of course, the ghastly way in which people have felt it necessary or appropriate to start talking about those who have now, we know, lost their lives in pursuit of what they might have thought as being a worthy voyage. Like you say, I can't pretend that I would be that enamored at the prospect of spending thousands of pounds going and taking a trip at what is ultimately a very watery grave. It doesn't thrill me at all. I've watched documentaries on it, and that's more than enough for me to know.
I'm with you. Seen it on telly. It's enough for me. Don't want to see anymore. Thank you.
But even so, it's just not the point. It's if that's how they want to spend their money, that is their business, and literally no one else's. It's not yours, not mine, not listener, not viewer, nothing. Absolutely no one's business.
It's none of our business. If somebody buys a Ferrari 250 GTO from 1964-65 for 15-20 million pounds.
Well, they're not being taxed enough.
Well, they're not being taxed. If you buy Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona, the original, for $15 million at auction. It's none of your business. Go and buy a Timex. Go and buy something cheap like this. Fine. It doesn't concern you. Ash Sarkar of Novara Media, don't get me started. He's got over 400,000 Twitter followers, said that if they have $250,000 to spend on this, they aren't being taxed enough. Ash Sarkar, shut up. It's none of your business.
Don't you think, though, RK, isn't it extraordinary how it's always those without money are the ones who criticize the ones with money of how they would spend it? Well, if you would spend it differently, go out and earn it. That's what I'd suggest.
Well, it really comes down to what I said at the beginning of it. It's the politics of envy. And what these people who pretend to be so kind, so loving, so caring, so thoughtful, didn't give a shit that these are real people in that submersible. Didn't care. They're not people to them, you see. That's where the argument all falls to pieces. You can care for somebody in a rubber boat arriving on the Kent coast, who's an economic migrant suddenly, but you can't care for somebody else. They're all human beings, and they're all loved by somebody. And that's the point. But they don't care. And that's where it falls down. And that's the politics of envy. And as Graham Pack says, irrespective of how wealthy these people are, they've left behind friends and family who will miss them, who love them. And imagine, and I put myself in this thought pattern, if I was there with one of my sons, it just sends me to the depths of despair, no pun intended. Horrible. Anyway, we hope the end was quick. I'm sure it was, because if it implodes, the whole thing is reduced to the size of about a polystyrene cup. I'm not kidding. It just goes, and you won't know anything about it. And let's just hope that's what happened. And I'm sure Hollywood will be making a movie out of it in the next 10 minutes. But the scripts are being written up. But anyway, that's it. The politics of envy are so horrible.
But it actually, I think that, I know we've spoken about jealousy before on this show, but I think it's always worth bringing it back as a topic, because it's one of the most cruelest and most vile emotions, if you think about it, because it doesn't bring anyone happiness, literally anybody. It winds people up who see others behaving in a jealous manner. And those who are jealous of someone else for whatever reason are made to feel like hell. They feel rubbish. They feel really bad. Isn't it just the most beastly of emotions?
Well, it's a pointless emotion because it benefits nobody. The person you're jealous of is not going to change at all. And all you're doing is eating yourself up because you're jealous, bitter, and twisted. Well, that's your problem. Get over it.
And it's over something you can't change, by the way.
There's nothing
more often than not, people are jealous of something that you can't change. Well, I mean, I say you can't change. That's not strictly speaking true. If someone is jealous of, say, someone else's wealth, well, then there is absolutely nothing stopping someone from going in pursuit of more money. Nothing. That's the beauty of the country we live in, that you are actually quite free and able to do that. But if you choose not to...
You've got the ability. Azadon Brown in New York State says this. Would you care to read it, Mr. Dave?
How very kind. Thank you, Mr. Kane. Why should I have my hand be in the pocket of another? Likewise, I should have the right to spend my money as I wish. Whether I climb, I suppose, Mount Everest, drinking scotch, smoking cigars, or donating to a charity, envy and jealousy will have no benefit to my person or anyone else. Here.
Absolutely. And what you don't see, I mean, I'm presuming, and I would never do it because it would be my nightmare, that if you set out to climb Mount Everest, which just seems to be another Disney attraction, following Sir Edmund
unlike
Hillary,
Kilimanjaro, though.
Precisely so. But, and when people die on Mount Everest or on K2 or on Kilimanjaro, you don't get all the tree huggers and the Ash Sarkars of the world going, oh, well, they spent their money climbing Mount Everest. What they should have been doing is, X, Y, and Z. However,
it's the tea's made coming round.
I don't know what the hell the noise is. It's just very noisy today. I do know this, that
anything from the trolley, love.
2 teas and a macaroon, please, Doreen. No, it's just
Custard cream.
Oh, sorry, we're out of custard creams, Mr. Dave. I'll get them in for Monday. Here's the thing.
Any sugar?
Oh, no sugar, thank you. I'm trying to lose a few pounds. Anyway, so you got any saccharine? Any Hermesitas? God, my mum and her Sweetex, bless her. I got Sweetex. I always loved it. The Sweetex was then transferred into the more and more and two soups. Kimmy Lashma. Two soups. Oh, Grand Pack. Well, there you go. Well, it's the same sort of non-logic. Maybe they, instead of climbing an Everest, they'll be going down the mines and digging for coal. Oh, Greta will have you for that. You can't do that. Can't dig for coal, although they will wish they had. It's all, I mean, direct action. Mayor Khan here in London in the UK is bringing this ULEZ thing, ultra low emission zones, which is a financial disaster for so many firms, people going, it's horrible. It's horrible. And I'm just thinking there seems to be nothing to do except maybe direct action. Now, people, I am not endorsing this. Men's radio station is not endorsing this. Sound Mind Radio Group is not endorsing this. But people are taking direct action and destroying the ULEZ cameras. Now, that is obviously illegal. It is criminal. However, people are so sick of it. I just wonder sometimes, and I was thinking about it over breakfast, I just wonder sometimes if direct action is the only course. How else do you stop something like the ULEZ, which is putting people completely out of business?
Well, it's amazing, really, if you think about it.
We've got to have clean air. Sort out the tube, mate.
We don't need to.
I tell you, which is 1,000 degrees. You feel like a Christmas turkey in there. God knows what.
I tell you for nothing, it is the biggest con known to man, saying that we need cleaner air. The air has literally never been cleaner in London in generation after generation.
Yeah,
literally never been cleaner.
But
if you think back, it wasn't that long ago.
But Phil, as much as this pains me, they did have to do things to get the, like when I was a kid, I walked around some days with a scarf around my mouth and nose because the smog was so bad. Yeah, I'm that old. Yeah, walking to school, scarf around my mouth and nose because the smog was absolutely terrible. Now, they've had to do things. One of the things, I suppose, is... but I'm sorry, I interrupted. So I don't know if I'm just shooting myself in my own foot there. Do you see what I'm saying? They've had to do things to do that. But the air in London, you know, is way cleaner. It's so much cleaner. But this is 2023. We're not going back to horse and carts. You might want to. We can't. Explain to me how a plumber, an electrician, or somebody like that is supposed to carry everything on a bicycle. Come on, this is nonsense. They need vans. This is a vibrant working capital city. I'm not being London-centric. It's the same because they've spread it out all over the UK and they've spread it out all over the world. You know that. We're just the idiot dummies.
You can literally call it whatever you want. You can call it ultra-low emission zone or whatever heck you stupid name you want to call it in the name of climate change. But it is nothing other than a tax on the poorest in London.
Of course it is.
Literally nothing other than a tax on being poor and not being able to afford a new car. That is it. Simple as.
Look, just look at the logic of it. And it does make me mad because people are losing their livelihoods. It's really heavily affecting their mental well-being and their employees. If you're a wealthy fellow who've got a few bob to spend and you think, well, I'm a one-man band, all right, I've got to get a new van and you can afford it, boom, you sell your old van, you buy a new van, end of problem. But if you're like, I would say 95% of tradesmen, that thanks to what they did during the lockdown and your business nearly went to the wall and you're holding on by the skin of your teeth, the thought of buying a new Transit or Iveco or whatever you're going to buy is utterly prohibitive. And people are having to close their businesses down because they can't afford to pay the ULEZ plus the congestion charge. It's nuts.
I have to say, though, in the interest of fairness, the way that people sort of always blame Sadiq Khan for it, it is true that Sadiq Khan is most certainly the one who is trying to expand it to the whole of London. But it's important to remember it was Boris Johnson who introduced it. I don't want people to I don't want people thinking that just because because we've got a Labour mayor of London that suddenly that's the reason why it's happened. But anyway, can I just
Martin Allen sums it up. Look at this. It's a scam. Of course, it's a scam. Ray Gelato, who created that wonderful theme tune we have, Phil and I have on a Friday, and I saw this week at the Pizza Express on Dean Street, gave a fabulous performance. Fantastic set. Well done, Ray. Wrote a really good piece on Facebook, and I sent it to Susan Hall, who's up against. You will be paying it if you haven't got the right car, Martin. And Kimmy's point is great, because if we can all pay £12 a day in London, the emissions, of course they don't. It's a nonsense. And I will tell you something. That when they brought in the congestion charge, miraculously, the traffic was much better for a couple of weeks. Can I tell you why? Because they reprogrammed the traffic lights leading up to it. They reprogrammed the traffic lights in London leading up to it to make it worse.
And this, by the way,
them back, and everyone goes, "Oh, this is good." No, it was a complete con from the beginning.
I know. Can I just point out as well, actually, this is absolutely no coincidence whatsoever. If you've ever noticed that when you're driving in and around London, I'm really sorry to anyone who's not in London, this is probably not very interesting.
But it will affect everybody, because it's part of a rollout plan,
Absolutely. But to anyone who is in London and has potentially noticed this, and they'll just sort of say it in passing, they'll say, "Oh, how annoying, get caught by the lights. It feels like every single set of traffic lights to get caught by." No. That's not coincidence. Okay, I'm tragic enough, okay, to have actually looked at certain traffic lights and actually studied the sequence of them. I know, pathetic, but trust me, I have. And the reason why I do it is part of to prove, to be able to talk about subjects like this and to say, well, actually, hang on, if you change the sequence of these lights, then congestion would flow better.
Of course.
But no, I tell you the best example I can give you is... Oh, gracious. What's the name of the road? Not Great Portland. The one that runs parallel to Great
Portland Place.
Thank you, Portland Place. If you have a look at Portland Place in the run up to where the Langham is and where the BBC is, there are 3, if not 4 sets of traffic lights. I think it's 3 sets of traffic lights there. Okay. And the way that they are programmed, I'm not kidding, is the first set, if you're coming from Park Crescent, you travel down the first block approaching the traffic lights. If the traffic lights are red there, then the next ones are green. As soon as the ones before turn to green, the next ones turn to red.
Absolutely.
And it succeeds with the next set as well. So the third set of traffic lights, it almost does it alternating red, green, red, or green, red, green. That's all it does.
And the interesting thing is, I go everywhere by tube and bus. I know you won't, because I do. I zip into town, tube, bus. I get the hell out of Dodge. Yesterday, I had to pop in to the German Street Theatre to collect something with from my business partners, the lovely Penny Horner and Howard Jameson, and all the lights on Piccadilly Circus are out. So as I came out of Piccadilly Tube Station, which is my station of choice, I came out. Absolute pandemonium, nothing moving. I'm moving because I'm on foot, right? So all the vans, buses, lorries, taxis, Ubers, nothing's moving. Why? Every single light with signs are out. No lights at all on Piccadilly.
Now that's interesting, actually.
Chaos.
Now that's really interesting you say that, because normally my experience is that when lights are off, actually traffic flows better.
You couldn't on this. There's such huge volume. And don't forget, before everyone goes, well, they shouldn't be driving. They're buses. They're allowed. We're allowed buses. You can't bring us back to the 18th century. It's not physically possible. And it's not fair. What is this? Here we go. Let's see what Leslie in cardiology. You read this, Philip. You have a much nicer voice.
How very I take that as a great compliment coming from your good self. Thank you. And also, it's because if I read it, I'm the one who gets into trouble. In cardiology, they try to prevent and remove blockage to the blood system. Our blessed authorities, who know everything, are intent on blocking and narrowing the road system. No wonder it is clogged up with pollution. They bring in pollution tax. We are so clever. So I think what Leslie's trying to say there, and quite rightly so, is in other words, if they create a problem and then cure that problem, then that makes them look better for it. But it is so flaming obvious. As I say, if you badly sequence traffic lights, if you take out a whole road on as many, if you take up a whole
lane northbound, Park Lane northbound, one of the main spines of London.
I know, from 3 lanes to 1.
No, it's one.
I know. Well, it's 1 now. It was 2, and then they took it down to 1 again, and they took it down to 1. So if you actually, it's not really rocket science. If you've got a certain flow of traffic going through a road, and then decide that you go from 3 lanes to 2 to 1, and that volume of traffic has not changed. Well, no kidding, it's going to increase. You only have to look at when temporary traffic lights exist to know that.
Horrendous. Anyway, so I walk everywhere. And I go by bus and tube, and that is it. I hardly, to be honest, in case you think we need to be chauffeur-driven. I've got Chantal. No, I've got a little tiny car for the city, which I've had now, I think 6 or 7 years, and I have no intention of changing it because I don't go anywhere. I think I do about now 3,000 miles a year, 3,000 to 5,000 miles a year. That's it. There we go. She's looking very, very summery. Very, very summery. Oh, I love this. Leslie Ian Jones, thank you for letting bloody cheek. Thank you for allowing the voice of the 18th century to read the...
I just complimented you. Do you mind?
Yes, he just agreed with you. What's the matter with you?
No point in insulting me. Anyway, the voice of the 18th century. Actually, having said that, have to be said this morning when I came in, someone who's quite... there's no point in naming names, but let's just say that someone who is quite
Vanessa Phelps.
No, someone who's quite high up in politics. No, listen. Someone who's quite high up in politics, who I'm lucky enough to work with, who, let's just say, believes in certain traditional values, had the audacity to say to me this morning, when he took one look at me, he said, "You look like something out of the 1950s. Why are you dressed like that?" Hang on a second. You're the one who believes. You're the one who believes in traditional values, and you're criticizing me for dressing in a certain way. But anyway, never mind. I just thought it was mildly amusing.
It wasn't Boris, was it?
It was not Boris. No.
Okay. Have you bumped into Boris yet?
I've met Boris, but not recently. I haven't.
I've never met him.
He's actually surprisingly, he's not very tall. You know, not much tall.
Quite wide.
Much taller than me.
Quite wide.
Oh yes. Oh no. What he doesn't have in height, he makes up for in width. Not just saying.
I'm going to give myself, before Chantal comes on and regales us with her charm, eloquence, elegance, and knowledge. Just a quick plug. For the last few months, I've been working on a project Phil knows nothing about. It's a brand new podcast series called Walk the Talk, The Hero's Journey, which I co-host with the terrific Mark Collin. Mark Collin was a guest on this program, and I was so impressed. We've been working together ever since, and I don't normally ever get involved with the guests in any way. It's nice. We love having them on, and then we probably don't see each other again. But with Mark, he's my sort of spiritual consigliere, as I call him. The podcast launches today. You can get it on Spotify, Apple. You can get it on every single streaming platform, thanks to our tech team. It's completely outside of Men's radio station and the Soundmind Radio Group. Nothing to do with this at all. It's a private thing. But if you fancy an hour of interesting conversations, some amazing guests we've recorded 14 episodes so far. And it's how really you recover from disaster. How when life knocks you down, you get up, brush yourself down, and try to carry on. It's called Walk the Talk. I'd be delighted if you listen. And if you like it, fantastic. Thank you, Azadon Brown. Sounds like an intriguing program. Intriguing indeed. Ooh. Right. There we go. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time.
Did you just get a bit overwhelmed by talking about your new podcast, did you?
I don't mind saying I did. No, I'm quite proud of it. I don't like pride, but I'm honoured to have my name.
You can't say that in the month of June.
Isn't it Pride Year? It's always something. Anyway, there we go. Good luck to them. Good luck to them. Let them go. Let them be happy. Let them have fun. What the heck? Doesn't bother me. As long as Everyone just get on with their lives and stop criticizing everybody else. That's all there is. Ladies and gentlemen, you know her. You have grown to love and adore her, quite understandably. Chantal Rickards OBE.
You are ridiculous sometimes. You totally are. Anyway, it's lovely to be here nonetheless.
What have I done now?
Yeah, what have we done?
No, listen, I'm definitely going to listen to your new podcast series, as long as you're not going to talk about the phasing of traffic lights.
No, it's nothing like that at all. It's really nothing like that. It's completely different to what we do here.
Excuse me. Just the only reason we were speaking about traffic lights is we felt like a change.
Why are you so tanned? Where have you been?
Well, I just did the back garden. I haven't been anywhere yet. Wow. I'm heading off on my holidays tomorrow morning, though.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll be allowed to know where you're off to.
Just the normal 2 months?
I'm going to Chianti-shire, which I've never been to before, to Tuscany.
Oh, my God, it's gorgeous. Probably my favourite part of the world. Oh, it's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to it very much.
Chantal, whatever you think it is, it's 20 times better. I absolutely adore it there. And if you're driving along, it's so beautiful. Every time you go around, this is me. I had some little car the size of a Diet Coke tin on driving. And you drive around the corner, you go, oh, and every view. Then you go around the next bend, you go, wow. I mean, you're oohing and ahhing it's just delightful.
Incredible. Well, I'm greatly looking forward to it.
It's a little bit like driving through Birmingham, really. You twist and turn, you just think, oh my goodness. Very simple.
Especially in the rear. especially Phil, when you see it in the rear view mirror and you go, right. Which part of Tuscany are you going to? Or are you traveling?
Well, I think it's about 40 miles south of Florence, and it's about miles north of Siena, something like that.
Oh, have you been to Siena? Never been to the tower? Oh my God!
No.
Let me tell you where you've got to go very, very quickly. You've got to go to Siena because of the tower. You stand there, go, how did they build this? You know, they had like Lego at those days.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous. Florence, I'm sure you must have been to Florence.
I've been to the city of Florence for 2 days.
Firenze is just simply magnificent.
Yeah.
And then Lucca, which is the olive oil. It sounds crazy, but Lucca, which you will travel to because it's pretty near. Lucca is the beautiful walled city. It's the olive oil capital, joking aside, of Italy, and just gorgeous markets. The food market in Lucca is out of this world.
Wow.
And then, as you and I have enjoyed several vineyards over the years of red wine, may I recommend that you go to the little village of Montepulciano.
There is a village called Montepulciano?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Wow.
So all those lovely Italian wines that Phil, you and I adore, and everybody else, they come from these beautiful little medieval villages like I think Abruzzi and certainly Montepulciano, and they're just gorgeous. And
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this episode of Wish You Were Here, but do tune in next week.
I'm trying to help Chantal. I want to have a lovely time.
I'll report back. Hopefully, I'll be joining the show next Friday from there with anyone.
Oh, what a backdrop!
And you know the best thing is, whereas even in Asda, you're little, you go in and you pay whatever you pay for just an average bottle of Italian wine. In some places,
hell have we gone from Tuscany to Lidl? Where did that happen?
Because it has to come down to my level, and I'm just Lidl or Aldi. That's my life.
I'm with you, Russ.
I'm with you. Pushing the trolley along. In some places, you can go to the vineyard with just any container and just fill up for like flumpence.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Seriously. Okay. It's so lovely. It's beautiful.
In that case, Chantal, I'm just going to drop a flask off to you this afternoon.
He's just going to bring an industrial vat.
I should. Rather sadly, I'm only taking hand luggage, so I'm not going to be able to bring any wine back with me, which is a bit of a pity.
Well, it won't last anyway. You know that. You're fooling nobody. Right. Chantal Rickards, OBE, what have you seen recently? Oh, that rhymed.
Okay. Well, I was going to work backwards. I know, which sounds a bit odd, but I'm going to start with a quick one, just because it's a show that we all know, but I just wanted to give everybody a quick heads up that Who Do You Think You Are last week featured Ruby Wax. Ruby Wax is a massive campaigner around mental health. She had a massive breakdown. She, some years ago, she was admitted to hospital. She's been on antidepressants for about 20 years. She talks about it very openly, very passionately. And she's basically saying that she's doing this program because she wants to talk about her past, because she knows very, very little about it. Most specifically in her story, she had no idea that she had relatives who didn't survive the Holocaust. So that's sort of where the story starts. And it gives you some level of understanding of why her father ultimately was rather a cruel man towards her and her mother, but his background massively complicated. So it's worth watching because it's much more multi-layered than normal, where you just get, you know, a history story. This is so much more about the emotion of, you know, what your history means to you and how it's fashioned you. So and that's also a quick one.
And also, just speaking as someone who actually has seen the Ruby Wax episode of Who Do You Think You Are thing from when it was like originally on, it's amazing how she, let's just say, I know this sounds really horrible, but her family history is conducive with why she's so affected by mental health. It's quite extraordinary, really, because it just kind of goes to show that sort of when someone maybe doesn't understand why they are the way they think they are, and doesn't quite sort of understand why they maybe have the thought processes they do, I don't know if people give enough credit to genealogy and sort of whether or not it's hereditary sometimes, and you can't help the way you think and the way you feel. So Indeed. It is extraordinary to watch Ruby Wax's Who Do You Think You Are? I
genuinely believe that we have a propensity to inherit the genes, DNA, call it what you will, of our family. I mean, it's something that, to be absolutely serious, it's something I've had to fight my entire life, because of my parents, and who I loved and adored, but that they, you know, had certain problems and issues, and I'm very aware it would be all too easy to succumb to that.
Yeah.
And I was having this conversation, I'm not going to say with who, with somebody yesterday in town, and they think they were born with a propensity, and I'm not going to say what it is, doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. And I agree with that, because they think they had it all their lives. Yeah. And Ruby Wax, I'd love to meet her. I'm not a fan at all, but I would love to meet her. I'd love her to come on the show if she ever would, because I put her up there with Denise Welsh. They go, this is who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make capital out of it. I'm just being brutally honest. And I really object to when Piers Morgan was trashing Denise, who's a mate. I thought that was very unfair. She's not doing it for attention. She doesn't need to. She's got a highly successful career and a very lovely life.
Yeah.
She's not doing it for look at me, I'm a wreck. You know, and I felt very strongly about that.
Chantal, by the way, before I forget, I need to say thank you, because once again, a superb recommendation from your good self has led to a great deal of entertainment so far. Do you remember you spoke about last week, the Pez Outlaw?
Actually,
no, it was the week before. I think it was actually the week before. It was the week before. And I have sort of managed to see half the documentary. I haven't sat down and watched it all in one go, because it's just, I can't allow myself to watch a 90-minute documentary in one hit. It's just too long. So, but even I get itchy fingers. I can't do nothing for that length of time. That's why I never really go to see films. But anyway, but the Pez Outlaw it's quite extraordinary, really.
Is that just like the Pez? There's like the Pez dispenser when I was at school. Oh my God, I used to love those.
Or maybe it was last week, if you don't remember talking about
it.
Maybe it was last week. Sorry. Yeah, okay, so I've watched half of it. And to anyone who's not familiar, and obviously including Russ, and this Pez Outlaw is basically about this chap who's based in deepest, darkest America in the middle of Plottsville. I mean, literally, I don't think I've even heard of where he's from. No, I know, but it's somehow like a sort of suburb within that, isn't it? Almost like it's just like a hidden town within Kansas. Anyway, but look, don't get me wrong. He he's definitely living the American dream, if ever I saw it, because he started off as a factory worker, had a slight mild obsession with Pez dispensers, didn't like the ones that were available in America, and through what can only be described as the black market, in inverted commas, discovered where he could actually get these really good Pez dispensers. I mean, like, to me, there's a difference, but anyway, like, you could get these really good Pez dispensers, and he's wound up going to Hungary. He's wound up going to various parts of Europe. Anyway, it's completely and utterly bonkers, but incredible. And he has made a fortune from it, an absolute fortune, from naffle bits of plastic. It's incredible.
Phil. Yeah. I won't spoil the ending. You have to watch the last 45 minutes.
No, yeah, don't get me wrong. I realise it could probably fall down, but even so, the first 45 was fascinating. So if the next 45 is even better.
If you've got an hour and 45 to spend, very quickly, then back to you, Chantal, obviously. Yeah. The latest, I caught up the other evening on the latest of the Grand Tour series on Amazon called Euro Crash.
Yeah.
I got to say, I'm sitting bursting out laughing because it's so silly. It's so silly. They've taken it to an extreme, but it was really good. Really good. Beautifully made by Andy Willman and the team. Beautifully
made. Good. Well, I will enjoy watching the rest of it because, I mean, in spite of Jeremy Clarkson, I do enjoy watching those programs. And I think
if you don't like Clarkson, watching him because he's put on even more weight, getting him stuck in a race car, literally stuck, and he couldn't get it, and they had to dismantle the race car around him. I was just roaring because he was so embarrassed. He couldn't physically get out. It was
he's turning into a bit of a chunky monkey, actually.
Oh boy, if you thought he was big in the last series, wowza, ballads and cowser, boy, he's packed it on.
Anyway, dear.
There you go. Anyway, what's next?
Anyway, well, I'm definitely going to watch that. Now, for people outside the UK, they're probably not going to know who Alan Carr is, but in a nutshell, Alan Carr is a British television comedian, really. He doesn't do a lot of stand-up. He's really known for television comedy and for chat shows, and he uses his very sharp mind to great effect on lots of programs that he's done over the years, mainly on Channel 4. But they've now got him on ITV, which is quite interesting. And he persuaded ITV to take on an idea about creating a sitcom around his childhood. Which actually is really interesting. So whether you like the Alan Carr character or person doesn't matter, because actually what's been created, I think, is a 6-part sitcom, and it is beautifully written. Alan himself appears in it occasionally, rather like a sort of a ghost who just sort of appears and stands next to his younger self. But the whole sitcom, which is called Changing Ends, the star of the sitcom is this young actor who plays Alan at the age of 11 called Oliver Saville, who I had never heard of, and he is brilliant. He's such a talented young actor, and he gets the Alan character completely right. He doesn't overplay it. He doesn't do it as a sort of pastiche. It's honestly, it's a remarkable performance, and I think he will get lots and lots and lots of awards.
Now I feel really bad because I watched the first 15 minutes and I couldn't get into it. Have I not given it long enough?
Stay with it. Honestly, stay with it.
All right, I'll try again.
Yeah, in some places it's laugh out loud funny, but it's got such gentle humor. And what you find is that the young Alan actually is very embarrassed by his father, who runs Northampton Town. I think he's the coach of Northampton Town Football Club in the 4th division, which is always losing. So he's the sort of the most hated man in the local town. But the father equally is embarrassed by this 11-year-old son who's got big sort of crazy teeth, who wears these crazy glasses and clearly is a one-off, clearly a very different character. And I mention this particularly because it is Pride Month, and we have to accept that in the 1980s, for a young boy of 11, clearly who was going to grow up to become, in fact, a gay icon, that his life must have been very different to most people's. And his family's reaction to him is absolutely fascinating. His mum thinks he can do no wrong, and his dad's a bit embarrassed because he's not a blokey boy. Honestly, it's really beautifully written. Alan's written it with a co-writer.
There's an interesting thing here. When Alan used to do Alan, like I know how met him once, he used to do his stand-up. Very, very funny. I'm not so keen on the chat show. His stand-up was terrific, and he created his dad as a sort of monster character. The reality is they're very, very close. The reality is he never
interesting. I didn't know that.
He never really took the mick out of him as he does in the stand-up. It's an exaggerated version. And there's much more love in real life.
That's really good to know, because to me, one of his funniest lines in stand-up actually comes from an anecdote surrounding his father.
Dad. Oh, I know.
Yeah. So to me, it was just, I'll try as best to recreate it, but obviously it's completely funnier when Alan says it, Alan Carr says it.
Everything
but in a nutshell, he sort of recalled about how his father used to make him play football at the weekends, which he absolutely hated. And he always said, you're sort of created in the image of your parents, and you can kind of blame them for how you turn out. And all his lasting memory of his father is when he was being forced to play football on a Saturday morning, was where he used to say, "On the head, you puff, kick the ball, you puff." And he said, and if you hear something enough times.
I loved it. He said, I won't do the voice because I'll get it wrong, but he says, my father would never send me out shopping. He said, because he thought I'd go into Dixon and go, oh, look at me, I've come out with a pony. Just a notion. It's a branch of Dixon's coming out with a pony.
But it was obviously a very naturally funny child. Apparently, all the dinner ladies at school adored him, but his fellow students thought he was a bit weird. So, but
it's just hysterical. I've got so much time for him. He's so funny.
He's crazy funny. I've always found him crazy funny. But if you look back on some of the live at the Apollo, and when he's doing his stand-up, he's terrific. He really is he's a talented man.
Well, very
and
good.
I like that thing he did with Amanda Holden as well. That was jolly. Where they renovated what they do?
It's on a holiday home or something. Yeah.
They went to somewhere in Europe and they renovated a place between them. And Amanda was, as you would imagine, Amanda's very practical, and Alan's getting into the most horrendous flaps all the time and panicking all the time. And Amanda's very.
Apparently, he used to. One of his first jobs was he used to stack shelves at Tesco and Brent Cross.
Wowzer!
Really? Fascinating. Well, obviously, I
was a petrol pump attendant. Go figure. That was my first.
That's very good. My first job was working in a dry cleaner. That wasn't great.
Be a bit hard pressed.
Changing Ends, ITV, and definitely worth a watch. And it's also on the ITV player. So
still, it was a good place to let off steam.
How many dry cleaning gags can we fill? Come on, everybody, play along. Dry cleaning gags. Chantal in a dry cleaners. Okay.
Anyway, I do apologize. Okay, so sorry. It was called Changing Ends, and it's on ITVX. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
And it's definitely worth it. Anyway.
Good.
So then I was going to take us to a slightly darker place, a true story that's been turned into a drama. There are so many of these things. This one originated as a podcast series about a true crime. It's a fascinating and what I'm sure is going to be a dark, bleak story, because the clue is in the title. It's called Dr. Death. And it's the story of a surgeon and the two whistleblower co-surgeons who decide that this guy has got to
true or is this fiction?
It's on CITV.
No, it's on Channel 4. And it's an 8-part series. I've only watched episode 1. I've read up about it, so clearly I know what the story is now, and I know what the ending is, so I'm certainly not going to spoil that. But the guy from the first episode, who is the main character, is completely deluded as to his capabilities and is clearly suffering probably from some crazy disorder around. I think he's a narcissist. Clearly, they don't dig quite deep enough into why his behavior manifested itself in the way that it did. But clearly, there are a lot of victims in this story. There are a lot of people whose lives were changed very dramatically.
Is it set in the? Where's it set? Here?
Set in the US.
Oh, in the US. Okay.
It happened. I mean, not that long ago. I mean, it's a modern day story. But the two fellow surgeons are played by Alec Baldwin and Christian Slater, and they are
that's a cast.
It's as much about bringing the guy down as about the patients, and it's really how they brought him down and over what period they brought him down. And it is sort of amazing that it went on as long as it did, because everybody believed the ego. He told everybody he was the best surgeon, and everybody.
So who's playing the egomaniac Dr. Death?
It is played by somebody called Joshua Jackson, who was an actor I don't know. So it's rather interesting that he's sort of outgunned, as it were, by the two big headliners of Alec Baldwin and Christian Slater. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but most actors don't like playing baddies. Maybe they couldn't find anybody really famous to play.
Alec Baldwin was in Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm not making it up. Alec Baldwin appeared in Thomas the Tank. Yeah, the live action version. And in his contract, serious. In the contract, he was not allowed to be referred to as the Fat Controller.
No.
Swear to God.
Well, but the Fat Controller is the Fat Controller.
Not if you're Alec Baldwin. You're not allowed to call the character the Fat Controller. Promise you.
The morbidly obese station master.
That's the one. No. Salad dodging employee of Southeast Rail. No, I don't. Anyway, that's true. Alec Baldwin in Thomas.
Salad dodging RMT member.
Oh dear.
Jeez, where are we with that case? You know everything. You got a finger on the pulse. Where are we with that case in America about Rust? The movie. The
Rust.
Terrible, horrible incident.
From memory, they've gone back into production to finish it.
No.
I think so.
Oh.
Almost sure they went back into production. Almost sure I read that.
Oh, that is tasteless. I'm sorry.
That's tasteless. I think he was...
No, I think you're right, Chantal. I'm sure I remember reading it's gone back into production.
Oh, that's interesting. Sorry.
And I can't remember about the court. Well, I think they were found guilty of not behaving appropriately on set in terms of the armaments being kept away, and there should have been clear blue water between live ammo and
there are certain phrases that aren't allowed to be used as well, such as shoot on location. So.
I know.
Too soon?
Excuse me.
Possibly too soon.
I'm the worst.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's not bad enough that they're going back to record it, and I'm the evil one here.
I found something. Just very odd. I don't know how it came past me, because I love, I kind of only watch crime stuff on TV. That's what I like. What the heck? And I'm just breezing through Amazon, and I came across something from about 10 years ago with the great Jason Isaacs, and it's called Case. Bloody hell, what's it called? Case Histories. I think it's called Case Histories.
Okay.
He was a policeman. He left. He became a private detective. I know that sounds dreadful. Really good. Really enjoyed it. It's on Amazon. I think it's called Case Histories, and really recommend it.
Okay, I think I may have seen that. Yes,
big Jason Isaacs fan.
Jason Isaacs.
He's terrific, isn't it? Yeah.
Anyway,
look at this.
Speaking of people who don't want to play evil, actually, of course, he's probably most famous for having played one of the evil characters in the Harry Potter series.
Malfoy.
Indeed. Well, Jason, I knew a little bit when I was in Hollywood, because he was a member of BAFTA Los Angeles. But most importantly, he used to come down to where we did a lot of our community and outreach work in the less than privileged schools in South Central LA, and he used to come down and help mentor the kids. So he's
such
a
nice. I haven't seen him in many years, but when he was kind of starting off, not like the huge star that he became, he was so utterly charming and so nice and just a lovely bloke.
Good, we like that.
Big fan of his. Big fan.
Excellent.
Very nice guy. There we are. Okay. Next.
So I'm now taking us into tricky territory, only because you guys have been journalists for a long time, or broadcasters, I should say.
I've never been a journalist in my life.
Broadcaster, never a journalist.
All right, whichever. But I think it is sort of incumbent on us all to make sure that we know about the phone hacking trial that is going through the courts in the United Kingdom at the moment. This is all about the newspapers in their day were hacking the phones of the famous. And the BBC have done a very good 90-minute documentary that's just called Scandalous, the phone hacking trial. But it does feature some incredibly well-known people. Hugh Grant, Sienna Miller, talking about when she was on the front page of the newspapers because she found out on a particular day that her boyfriend, Jude Law, had been sleeping with his nanny. And then 2 days later, she found out that she was pregnant. Now, those pieces of information had been highly privileged, but she talks about how she was thrown into this absolute maelstrom of madness, and accusing all her friends of spilling the beans about these two things that were going on in her life, which were incredibly private, and the effect it had on her. They also interview Heather Mills, who I know a bit from television days, who's talked about, for many years about her phone being hacked when she became Lady McCartney. But interestingly, it also talks to the hackers. And that was something new in this story that I hadn't heard before, was actually them admitting to how they hacked Heather's phone. It talks about the Millie Dowler case, the young girl who was murdered, and how her family's text messages were listened to.
Despicable.
It is so despicable, but actually it's sort of worth listening to just to make sure that we all know to be aware of this stuff and to make sure it never happens again. I think more heads will roll around this. I think, even last week, the judge was saying, why haven't we heard from Piers Morgan? I'm not suggesting he was guilty or innocent, but it's an interesting question nonetheless. So if you're even vaguely interested in that story, watch it. It's on the BBC. It's a 90-minute doc. Came out last week.
For understandable reasons, Phil can't comment.
No,
you've noticed. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
no,
Phil can't comment on this for all sorts of complicated legal reasons. But it is utterly despicable. It's inexcusable. And I'd never understood, we've all been in the media a long time. I've never understood the public have a right to know. No, they don't. It's none of our business. It's private. It's not our business. We do not have a right to know. It's shocking. Absolutely revolting behaviour. The fact that you say it'll never happen again, I'm afraid, and I never disagree with you in the many years that we've known each other, I think they would do it again in a heartbeat, and I'm sure it's going on now. Yeah. I don't think they'll ever stop to get that scoop, because it's only about the story. It's not about the news. It's only about the story. And selling papers. And it's like you want to have a shower afterwards. It's horrible, like swimming through a sewer. There we go. Horrible. And where's that on? That's on BBC, did you say?
BBC. Yeah, it's on the BBC iPlayer. I think it was on BBC Two, but I mean, it's quite a well-made documentary, and clearly they've got very good people contributing to it. So, I mean, you don't hear from anybody really that any of the current Fleet Street people, and they probably asked, and they were probably turned down. And obviously, there's a massive court case going on, so it's quite difficult for them to talk about it. But at some stage, there will be an adjudication, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
I can't see how it can.
Have you got any quick fire suggestions?
Yes,
for
good
us?
idea. Good idea.
Okay,
Philip.
quick fire. Sky have picked up a very nice comedy from the United States called Somebody Somewhere. And it's a sort of, it's not a coming of age story, as a sort of coming of middle age story. Young woman goes back, I think, in fact, to Kansas again, goes back to Kansas. Story.
Toto.
Yeah. We joined the story when we joined the story where she's just spent a year looking after her sister who has died, having left New York, and she's very much a fish out of water.
Sounds like she looked after a little too late. Oh, I
well,
see. Sorry, in the run up to it. Sorry.
Oh, I can't.
no,
Phil.
But it's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is virtually unheard of.
God.
It's not laugh out loud comedy. It's a comedy about a situation, but it's beautifully written. An stand-up actress who I'd never heard of, who is called Bridget Everett. If you know her, you'll probably love her because she's terribly popular, but I didn't know her. She's great, and that's called Somebody Somewhere, and it's on Sky Comedy.
Marvelous stuff. Chantal, thank you so much.
Chantal,
Great.
have a wonderful,
have a nice
holiday.
I will.
Factor 5,000, whatever you do, make sure you do.
I'll have a glass of Chianti for you both.
Oh, please.
Oh, splendid. How very kind.
A few bottles if you don't mind. There she goes, the wonderful Chantal Rickards OBE. Well, that's it for another week from Men's Radio Station, from myself and Phil, from myself and Neil Long and all the gang. Thank you so much for joining us. Phil, have a wonderful weekend. We're not seeing you next week, are we? Because
I'm afraid not. Sorry.
Very, very busy, and that we're not seeing Chantal next week. So it'll just be me and absolutely no idea. But anyway, there we go. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Enjoy the sunshine.